Yeah, hello everyone. So in our last session, we understood conceptually what are the tolerance groups and what is the meaning of tolerance group and the usage of tolerance group. That was the very detailed session for your understanding. So today we are going to do the hands-on. So I will demonstrate screen by screen and we will go after each single field in that particular screen. Okay. So we are going to explore like what is the role of that particular field and what will happen if you leave it blank and other real-time project tips I'm going to provide you today. Okay, so let's start with the most commonly configured and the frequently asked about the tolerance group. So that tolerance group is the tolerance group for employees. So following our traditional approach, first of all, we would be going to each screen using the SPRO path. Then we would be utilizing the T code for the transaction code. Okay. So to create tolerance group for employees, we are having the path. Okay, so let me tell you about the path. So you can use directly SIMG. Okay, so it will land you on the implementation guide screen. So now once you come here we have to select the financial accounting. Okay, under financial accounting, this tolerance group of employees comes under the financial accounting global settings. The next two, which are like GL account tolerance and the customer vendor tolerance, falls under this general ledger accounting and the account receivable and account payable. So first of all, let us go to financial accounting global settings. So under this, you have to click on document. Now further, once you come here, you have to click on this tolerance groups. Once you click here, we are having the define tolerance groups for employees and assign user tolerance groups. So these are the two steps. Firstly, we will be doing this, and then we are going to assign the tolerance to the group of users. Okay, so let me click here. So once you click there, the screen will open up. Change view FI tolerance groups for users. Okay, so as I told you, we would also be reaching to the screen using a transaction code. Let me close this and let me come to the main screen. Now the T code to reach that particular screen, we have already seen our theoretical session in our previous session that the T code to create the tolerance group for employees or users is OBA4. Okay, so once you click on enter, same screen will open up. Let me click enter. Let's see. Change view FI tolerance groups for users. So now I want to create a new entry. So to create a new entry, you can click here. Okay. So this is the screen which will come up once you click on new entry. Okay. So here actually what we will do as per our theoretical session, we will create two tolerance groups. Okay. So the one is which would be general applicable for all employees and one for our some of the senior employees. Okay. But before that, let me repeat it. This tolerance group, whether related to the like user or whether related to the GL or it's related to the customer vendor, all are defined at the company code level. So the tolerance group are you can mention tolerance company code specific. Okay. So first of all, we are creating tolerance group for our all the employees, okay, all the users. So in that case, we have to keep it blank. Okay. Now let me give our company code here. So our company code is INTA. So now here, these field I'm just quickly telling you. If you want the detailed explanation, you can refer our previous video, which is the theoretical explanation of tolerance curve itself. So this is the maximum amount any user can post. So we are creating it for like junior employees. Okay. So let me give here the we have given here the okay 1 lakh amount, and then this is the amount per open item. Okay, so it means like per line item how much a user is authorized to clear on the post. So you can mention like 10,000 we have given here. Above total we have given, let me give it as a 10 lakh, and let me give this as a 1 lakh. Okay, not 1 lakh, I think it would be fine. Let me give it as 10,000 only. The cash discount per line item. What do we understand by this? So let's suppose there is a vendor invoice in that vendor invoice you are giving certain percentage of discount. So that discount, where does it come from? We know that it comes from the payment terms. Okay, so payment terms include the baseline date as well as the net due date. And within net due date, you define like if certain payment is made within certain deadline or the timeline, this much percentage would be given as a discount. Let's suppose you are providing 5% discount to a vendor if that vendor is like making a payment within 15 days. So let's suppose we want to provide the authorization to our these users to override that discount percentage. Okay. So now by how much over and above that payment term discount you want your employees to like override that payment term, you can mention it. So I'm mentioning 2%. So what does it mean? Let's suppose 5% was given already. Now we want extra like 2% to be given. So up to 7%, like that particular employees who is having this particular authorization under this company code can make that 5 to 7. Okay. So this is how this functionality works. Now the next is permitted payment differences. So this part we are going to discuss in detail while we would be seeing the vendor customer tolerance. Just let me brief you. Okay. So where do we use this particular payment differences? Okay. So it actually used while we are doing the payment to the vendor or receiving the payment from the customer. Okay. So once you do the payment to the vendor, okay, you are actually clearing the pending invoice which you are having. So if there is a difference between the invoice which you receive from the vendor and the payment you are making, and in that case in your system certain this limit revenue or the expenses, this amount in the percentage of the cash discount is maintained, so this tolerance group will play an important role. Okay, so I will tell you, giving you example. Okay, so let's suppose we are giving revenue as 5,000 and we are giving percentage as 2% and cash discount we are giving as a 2,000. Okay, so remember this 2 is, for example, this percentage sign belongs to this particular column. Okay, percentage, not this is the absolute amount. And then next under expense we are maintaining 4,000 and 1.5% is this 1.5% as an expense. And again, we are maintaining cash discount adjusted to 2,000. So how does that work? Okay, let me tell you these things on Excel sheet. Okay, so you will better understand it. But before that, I would like to mention some of the important points. Okay, so in case of the like this payment differences while you are doing the uh, clearance of the line item, especially like manually you are doing it. So in that case, if there is a difference, then that difference should flow to particular GL accounts. Okay, so whether it can be a like revenue or it can also be expense or it can also be a discount if discount is applicable. Okay, so first of all, let me mention that point itself, like difference in any form goes to GL account. So I will mention what are the various GL accounts. And one thing you have to keep it in your mind that, like we mentioned as a note, all of these GLs are PNL account. Okay. So remember this point might be asked in an interview. PNL account. Okay, next let me mention the categories of the accounts. So the naming might be varying as per the project naming convention. So we are having the GL for payment difference account, okay, general payment difference account. And then we are having a revenue, a write-off account. Sometimes it is mentioned as Let me write as miscellaneous, okay, income. And next, let me mention expense, again write off, and then again miscellaneous. And this would be expense, okay, or the loss you can mention. And next is, which is very much important, cash discount adjustment account. Okay. So there are varying configurations for these GLs, like automatic picking of the GL. So we will be taking up this in separate session. So, but commonly these are the GL which incorporate the difference. Okay. Now let me just tell you about the like applicability of each field. Okay. So let me come down. So we will go by the scenario wise. Okay. So let's suppose I'm mentioning the scenario one. Me and the size of it. Okay, so this is the scenario. Okay, so let's suppose there is one like customer invoice, and now there is a payment, and then we are mentioning is a difference. So let's suppose there was a invoice of, let's suppose, 1 lakh rupees. Okay, and you receive the payment of, let's suppose, 98,000. Okay, and the difference, if you see, we can calculate difference between the payment and the customer invoices 2,000. Okay? So let's suppose you provided the discount 1.5%. I'm just mentioning 1.5%. Here we have already mentioned, like if we are getting underpayment from the customer, we are allowing payment difference up to 1.5%. So 1.5% of the 1 lakh would be 1500. Okay. So, but let me just clarify you. If you see the difference here is of 2000. Okay. So now the how does it work is, first of all, it will be checking if there is cash discount adjusted to. Okay, so first of all, this value would be offsetted. If it will be able to find, for example, we are having the underpayment from the customer, so it's a kind of expense for us. So here 2000 is given. So it means this invoice would be successfully cleared because this 2000 would be recorded in the cash discount adjustment account. Okay, so the result would be, I'm mentioning the result. Okay, so okay, while I'm mentioning it means that the clearance of the customer invoice or due to the difference won't be stuck. Okay, it would be cleared, and the difference would be posted to your cash discount adjustment account. So how accounting entry would look like, I'm mentioning for this just one scenario, and for the other you can understand. Okay, so whenever we are like posting any manual customer invoice. So in that case, original invoice file you are posting. So what happens is your customer gets debited, okay, and then your revenue gets credited. Okay, so this is the accounting entry looks like. But while you are doing the payment, or like while you are posting the payment from the customer, so what happens is, first of all, it might be like your bank or your cash account, whatever it is, like bank is debited, okay, and your customer is credited. But here we have to mention, as I told you, the customer invoice was of 1000, okay, and revenue was of 1000. Okay, it is credited. So let me mention like this. So here it is written off. Now at the time of payment, what we got is, sorry, it's not 1000, it's 1 lakh. Okay, to come down, it's 1 lakh. Now while we received the payment, so it was 98,000. Okay, and this customer got credited. Okay, it will be credited by 1 lakh. Okay, whatever the amount we posted as a debited, because the liability of the customer is going. Now where that particular, the difference between these two would be going, so that would be going to the cash discount adjustment account. Okay, so that would be, so that would be debited, and the difference would be of 2000 here, and this 1 lakh would be in the minus. Okay, so this would balance off. So this is how it will look like in terms of like this. If 2000 is maintained, so this entry would be posted, the result would be okay. Okay, let me do it green. Okay, so the result is okay. So this is the first scenario. So let me mention the second scenario. Okay, the second scenario, let me give you. So again, let me just copy this data. Let me create this part. So now let's suppose customer invoices of 1 lakh, and now you receive the amount of, let's suppose I'm just giving you example, 93,000, 96,500. Okay, so the difference would be of 3,500. So here again you are getting the like less amount, it would be a part of expense because we are talking about the customer. Okay, so here the discount or the percentage of the expense we have maintained is 1.5%. That would be making 1,500. Okay, so now the total difference is of 3,500. Okay, so in this case what is happening is, so already we have maintained 2000 under a cash discount adjustment. So first of all it will be picking this, so the total difference is 3,500. Okay, so out of that 2000 went into discount, and then we are having 1,500 as the percentage, expense percentage. Okay, so finally the total would be, if we do the sum, okay, of both these, so it would be 35,000, 3,500. Okay, so it would be successfully be posted. So let me mention the result would be okay. We copy the formatting. So the result would be okay. It means the invoice would be successfully cleared off. Okay, if you see the accounting, so this will go to the cash discount adjustment account, and then this will go to the expense write-off or the miscellaneous expense. Okay, now why we are checking this part, so how does it function is, for example, if both amount as well as the percentages are given, so first of all it will look for the condition where it can like match it. Okay, So whenever it reaches any particular limit, okay, then it stops. Okay, so it means the lowest value of this under any tolerance gets considered first. Okay, because this 1.5% might be vary given the original invoice amount. For example, for 10 lakh, the 1.5% would be like 15,000, and for 1 lakh, it would be 1500, and for the 1,000, it would be 15 only. So it will be varying, but the absolute amount would be same only. So whichever is the less, okay, the percentage or the amount would get picked first, and then system will stop further. Okay, so let me mention just scenario 3, and then you might get it better. Let me mention scenario 3. So let me copy this data as same only. Copy this data. So now just we are saying we received the payment of 95,000. Okay, so now we are having the total difference of 5,000. So now system will coming to firstly to the cash discount if anyone if any is given. Okay, so it will take 2,000 as a cash discount, and then it will come to the these values. So it will see the what is the this 1.5% of the 1 lakh. It is 1,500. So the total is, if we see, the total is 3,500. Okay. So now system is saying system is saying the difference is 5,000, and the tolerance or the payment difference permitted is of 3,500. Why it didn't go to this absolute amount? Because it saw that 1,500 is less than this 4,000, so it considered this one only. So now system will not proceed. Okay. So we can mention the result would be not okay. Not okay means simply the clearance won't be done. Okay. So it actually failed. So this is how actually system prevent. Okay. And this further you will see this is not that straight. Okay. While we are discussing the vendor and the customer invoice. So I will tell you there is a functionality of one residual payment and the partial payment. How does that work? Okay. But in like common sense or the common scenario, this invoice would not be cleared. Okay. They would be failed because that it is crossing the difference is crossing the available tolerance for the payment differences. So now let me just coming to our SAP screen itself. So this is how it functions. So this is the, for example, 10 lakh limit we have maintained, and there's a 10,000, this is 2%. I think these terms are clear. We are keeping it blank because we wanted to make for all our employees who are having access of this company code to be able to post according to these settings. Okay, so just we have to click on save. So the data has successfully been saved. So here, just due to the system settings, it is taking zero point 0.0. Okay, ideally it is 5,000. Here also you can see this is additional. Okay, 10 lakh. Here you can also see this is additional. Okay, so consider this. So these actually are the setting which are like profile specific in SAP. So let me come back and check whether our company code is maintained or not. So let me just position it, and if you give INTA, so this is our company code. So it means we have already maintained the tolerance group, blank tolerance group. Okay. And apart from that, the another important thing is the assignment of this particular tolerance group, the blank tolerance group for this company code. It has to be assigned to the user. Okay. And that is assigned in a T code OB57, and there's a path also. So apart from this, I told you we will be creating two tolerance group. Okay, the one for the juniors and another for the senior. Okay, so here we are giving a special tolerance. We are not keeping it wide open for all the employees. We are giving a naming SGIT, SGIT for the like senior group in India Tata Limited. Okay, or Tata India Limited. You can mention anything. So here I'm giving our company code as INTA. amount I'm giving here is a 1 crore. 1 0 0 0 3 times 4 5 6 7. So 1 crore. And then we are giving limit this as a 10 lakh. 10. So 10 lakh, and the cash discount we are giving at 5, up to 5% they can override. And then these values we are just keeping same the way we give it. Just we have increased this limit per document limit and the per open item limit. Let me just keep the same and let me just save it. Okay, so data has been saved. Let me come back, and now let me just give INTA. So INTA with blank is this. Now let me give INTA with tolerance group SGIT. So this is the tolerance group which we have created for our seniors. Okay, so another point I told you, the assignment, okay, which is another significant. So you have already seen the path is same. Just below the defined tolerance group for users, that was the assigned tolerance group. So the T code I told you is OB57. Okay, if you don't assign it, then there is no point of creation. You won't be able to post any entry or any of the users. Okay, so here actually this is the two column table which is too much important. Here we have to give the username, or it is a your SAP or LAN ID. Okay, here you have to mention, and then just give the tolerance group which you have created for your user. Okay, so this is the assignment. So I'm just giving some random like LAN ID or the SAP ID. So let me give this 1020304 and another I'm giving is 20406071. Okay, so here under the tolerance, I'm keeping it a blank for junior. Okay, for example, user ID is this, and then for senior, this I'm giving SGIT. SGIT. Okay, so here if you are having like multiple user, you can give here like who are having the authorization of your company code and keeping the tolerance group as blank. So all these users would be having access to this. If there are some other senior users, you can mention their IDs and mention the same tolerance group as GIT. So it would be assigned to them. Okay, so just we have to save it. Okay, so now we will moving next with our next tolerance group, and that is a GL tolerance group. Okay, so again we would be going through the path first, and then we would be using the transaction code to reach that screen. Okay, so first of all we would be using SPRO, and under our SPRO we have to click reference IMG and then financial accounting. Okay, so unlike that tolerance group for employee, okay, we are going to define tolerance group for GL. Okay, so for that we have to click here under general ledger accounting. So under general ledger accounting, we have to click business transactions, and then we have to click this open item clearing. Further, we have to click clearing differences. And finally, we have defined tolerance groups for GL accounts. Okay, so here you have to click. So you also have these option defined tolerance groups for employees, assign users to tolerance group, whatever we have already completed. Okay, so from here also you can reach the screen. But for now, we are going to define a tolerance groups for GL accounts. Okay, let me click here. So we will click on the new entry to create any new tolerance group for GL accounts. So first of all, I have already explained you in our previous theoretical video, like what do we why do we need this tolerance group? Okay, so you can refer this, but briefly I will be telling you the example. Okay, so I am giving the company code. I told you all the tolerance group, whether it is employee or the GL or the customer vendor, all these are company code specific. Okay, so we are giving our company code, and further we are having this tolerance group. So one more thing I told, if you keep it blank, so it means it is applicable for all of your GL accounts. Okay, so I am mentioning GL tolerance group for INTA. Okay, Data India Limited. Now further tolerances for groups of GL accounts in local currency. Okay, whatever the currency your company code would be having, so it will be accepting these tolerances. So now, for example, most of the time we use these tolerances while we are doing the GL account line item clearance or the offsetting line item of the GL. Okay, so there are some GLs like GRIR accounts, okay, or the bank account where you are actually having the transaction like debit transaction and the credit transaction. Okay, so sometimes there is a difference between the debit and credit, and we tell the system what difference is acceptable while you are clearing or offset, like clearing the offsetting entries. Okay, so here in case of debit posting, we are just giving the number. We are telling the system if there is in any document the difference of 2000 in terms of debit posting is there, then you should allow the clearance. Okay, again, we are giving the 2000 here also. And under the percentage, we are giving 1. Okay, so this point I also clarified. For example, if both are given the absolute number as well as the percentage, so system will be hitting the lowest first. Okay, so let's suppose it would be varying. Okay, what actually the difference is allowed, but it won't be exceeding any of the like two. Okay, so let's suppose there was a invoice posted or there is a GR posted for like a 2 lakh. Okay, and if you see the difference, the percentage, the 1% of 2 lakh would be 2000 itself. Okay, so it means whenever the difference between the GL item exceed by 2000, it will block the clearance. It won't be happening. Okay, let's suppose there is a invoice, there is a GRIR entry or the bank entry of 1 lakh rupee. So in that case, system will be checking what is the 1 percentage of 1 lakh. Okay, so it will amount to 1000. Okay, so 2000 is more than 1000. So over and above the difference of 1000 won't be cleared. Okay, similarly, let's suppose there is an invoice of let's suppose 3 lakh, and in that case, the 1% of 3 lakh would be 3000. Okay, so 3000 would be greater than 2000. Now the system would be taking this tolerance absolute amount. So more than 2000 won't be happening in any case. So it means in absolute term, the difference between two line item cannot be more than 2000. Otherwise, if it is lesser than that, like 2000, then it would be applicable through this percentage. Okay, I hope this is clear. So we are going to save this. But before saving, let me tell you, unlike that tolerance group for user, we actually assign that tolerance in a T code OB57 against any user ID or the LAN ID or the SAP system ID. Okay, but here this tolerance is actually assigned in a GL master record. Okay, so I will be telling you that as well. Let me firstly save it. So our tolerance is created. Okay, so now I will tell you where it actually gets assigned. Okay, all of you might be knowing the T code to create a GL account centrally is FS00. Okay, once you click on enter, this screen will open up. Okay, so let's suppose we are taking any random GL in the computer because we haven't created our company code. We haven't created any of the GL against our company code. So let me click enter just to show you where actually the tolerance group for GL is maintained. So here in a theoretical session, I told you we have to go to control data. So once you come here under the control data, you have to scroll little bit down, and here you can see the tolerance group. Okay, so whatever the tolerance group you have defined against your company code, all tolerance group would be available here. Okay, so since we are not using our company code, so we are not checking what the tolerance group are available, but this is the field where you define the tolerance group you created using a T code OBA0. Okay, so the tolerance group can be varying in nature. For example, you can make multiple tolerance group for like GL specific. You might be accepting a difference, difference in a different GL. For example, you are allowing 2000 in case of like bank, and if you are allowing 1000 in case of GRIR, so you can create multiple tolerance group. But if you keep the tolerance group as blank, it is applicable for all the GL where you are not assigning any of the tolerance. We are keeping it blank. So it means this GL will automatically pick the tolerance limits which you define under a blank tolerance group under your company code. Okay. So next we would be moving to our next tolerance group, and that tolerance group is very much important and will be taking bit of our time because having multiple fields, okay, to explain you. So again we would be going through the path. Okay, so let me tell you again, we have to go to the financial accounting. Under that you have to come to the accounts receivable and the accounts payable. Okay, so click here, and further we have to click on the business transactions. So similarly, the path would be uniform. Okay, you would be observing that under business transaction we have to come to the open item clearance. Okay, clearing, and then we have to come to the clearing differences. So you can easily like remember the path. Okay. Now under this, we have to click on define tolerances for customers and suppliers. Okay. Let me click here. So once you click here, this screen will come up and then click on the new entries. So here we are going to discuss each field, like practical applicability of each field. Though I have completed this in a theoretical session, just I will be telling you how these are applicable, showing you on screen live. Okay. So first of all, let me give our company code, which is INTA. Okay. And now we are keeping the tolerance group as blank. So we are simply keeping it. So it will be applicable for all of our vendor as well as the customers. Okay. So wherever we are keeping tolerance group as blank, let me write it. Uh, Tolerance group. So it is customer and vendor tolerance group for the company INT. Okay. So this point is clear. Currency it will automatically take of the company code. Okay. Now the specifications for clearing transaction. So I already told you in the theoretical session, this vendor and the customer tolerance group is applicable while you are like receiving the payment and there is a difference in that, or you are making a payment to the vendor and there is a difference in the original invoice and the payment you are making now. Okay, so in those scenario, all of these fields are applicable if you see specifications for clearing transaction. Okay, so here we are having the grace days due date. Okay, so let me open the Excel file to show you how does that work. So I hope the screen is clear to you. Okay, so here if you see the grace days due date. Okay, so I'm explaining you with the example. Okay, let's suppose you posted the invoice. Let's suppose there is a invoice posted. When did you post it? Like 1st of April 2026. Okay, and there is a payment term in the invoice. Okay, this is the vendor invoice we are taking. Let's suppose it is mentioned that uh, let me mention the payment different terms of 5% discount if you pay within 30 days. Okay, so it means that up to 1st of May 2026, if vendor make us the payment, then 5% discount that vendor may avail. Okay, so it means if the invoice was of 1000 and if we are giving 5% discount, and if vendor is making the like 950, so it is acceptable because we are giving a 5% discount. So let's suppose vendor made payment on, let's suppose, 6th of May 2026. Okay, so what will happen? The discount won't be given and 1000 only would be accepted from the vendor. But this particular field, if you see, if you give here, let's suppose 5. Okay, so these are the days. So it means over and above your deadline, up to 5 days, that discount which is given as per your payment term would still be applicable. So if you give like 5 days, so if vendor is making payment on 6th of May, still that vendor would be eligible for taking 5% discount. So this is the usage of this grace days due date. Okay. And then further, we are having the next as a arrears base date. Okay. So this is applicable actually on this grace days itself. Okay. So what happens is, for example, when a vendor is making payment, okay, like vendor is making payment, let me mention is making payment. Okay, so actually the vendor making payment to the bank and bank is transferring amount to you. Okay, so what happens is, for example, vendor made the payment on 6/5/2026. Okay, but due to the delay in the processing from the bank side, you received that payment on like 7th of May 2026. Okay, so ideally in your system you are entering on 7th, but the payment was made on 6th. Okay, so this is actually the field which will tell you what date if you have to consider. Okay, we are having only two options. Okay, the one is determine days in arrears according to document date, the date which is applicable when you received the payment or while you are entering in the system. And the second option is determine days in arrears according to value data bank item, means when the vendor actually made the payment to the bank. Okay, so if you select this option, okay, so this would be applicable, the grace days would be applicable because to the bank vendor made the payment on this 6th of May, and up to like applying this grace days up to 6th of May, the discount is applicable. But if you select this as a blank, okay, so it means the system will be considering the receipt date of the payment or the document date where you are entering the invoice in the system. Okay, so it means the date of the payment would be recorded as 7th May, and this discount would be gone. Okay, because up to 6th of May, because applying this 5 grace days, 6th of May, the vendor is eligible to avail this discount. Otherwise, it will not be applicable. Okay, so this is how this arrears based date is solely applicable on this particular field. Okay, now let me just explain you more about this particular field, cash discount terms displayed. Okay, this is very interesting. So if you see, there would be like multiple fields. So zero, let me show you. Okay, so if you like keep it blank or give zero and star, the current cash discount terms is applicable. Okay, so I think you might be knowing about the payment terms. Okay, so once we will be having a separate session, I will explain you in detail. But let me show you how payment term screen look like. So there is a transaction code to open or create or modify the payment terms, which is OBB8. Okay, so let me enter. Now these are the payment terms. Now let me create new. Okay. So let's suppose these are the fields. Okay. So here you can see. So what I'm saying is, let's suppose I'm saying if you are making a payment within 10 days, I will give you discount of 1%. And if you are making payment within 20 days, I'm giving the discount of 2%. Okay, so these are the like cash discount first, this is the cash discount second. Okay, and if that user is making payment like after 30 days, I'm saying no discount is applicable. Okay, so this is actually tells the system how like the discount should be applicable. So this is the 4 character alphanumeric key, the payment terms which are applicable to the customer as well as the vendor invoice. And according to the net due date or the payment date, okay, this would be applicable. Okay. So now let's suppose, let me, because there we are getting an option, we can keep a current payment. Okay. Current means whatever the like payment term deadline is applicable, for example, that would be there. Okay, but one more but here you can do something different. Okay, so let me explain you on the Excel sheet. So how this will be working. Okay, so let's suppose you are having your like customer who actually regularly uh, pays you within 10 days. Okay, so within 10 days, I showed you in the payment term, we are giving 1% discount. Okay. So here you can default actually. If the behavior of any customer or the vendor is that they are making payment regularly. So what you can do, you can apply the, so here what you can do, you can apply this first cash discount term. Okay. So what will happen is, even if user is making, even if the customer is making payment after, let's suppose, 20 days. Okay. So for this customer, there is a same payment term, but still that discount, okay, 1% discount that we are giving, if okay, would be applicable, because we are telling the system cash discount term displayed one should be applicable. Okay, I hope this would be clear to you. Okay, so because we want to maintain a good relation with our customer, even if sometime even if customer is able to make payment after 20 days, we are applying first payment term discount. Okay, so it means 1% discount will still be given if customer is making a payment after the 10 days also. Okay, so this is how this functionality works. Okay, now next we are having the permitted payment differences. Okay, so this part we have already discussed while we discussed about the uh, tolerance group for user. Okay, so here actually we are going to give the same values, like we gave here the 5,000, and here we gave the 4,000, and then under the percent which we gave 2%, and here we give 1.5, and under discount we gave 2,000, and again the 2,000. Okay. Now, so I'm skipping this part. I have already explained you. You can refer our tolerance group for the user. We are explained you how does it work. Okay. Next, we are having this permitted payment differences for automatic write-off. Okay, so this particular fields are applicable while you are doing automatic clearing of the vendor and the customer invoices. So how does it happen? Okay, so there is a one T code F.13. Just let me show you how that screen look like. Okay, once we would be doing it live, we can discuss that in detail. F.13. Let me enter. So this is the screen. Okay, automatic clearing. So mostly we give, like, if you see, we have the GL indicator, we have the supplier. Okay, we have the like we have the like customer. Okay, so we have GL, customer, supplier, and everything. It is applicable for automatic clearance. Okay, so now the purpose of showing this is, okay, here you can mention the revenue tolerance, okay, in the absolute terms as well as the percentage. Okay, so here just I'm giving as, let me mention the 2,000 and losses 2,000 and 1%, 1%. But here you won't be able to see the adjusted discount bar. Okay, so here it means up to 2,000 the difference is revenue is allowed. While when you would be having a revenue when you are receiving a overpayment from the customer, and in case if you are getting less payment under payment, it would be a loss for you. Okay, so up to 2,000 it is allowed. Otherwise it would be applicable percentage wise. I have already explained you how these two are applicable in these previous parts. Okay, while we discussed about the tolerance group for user, tolerance group for GL, I have already explained you how this is applicable. So system will be hitting the lowest value first. If the system would be hitting the lowest value first. Okay, so this is how it is used. And next we are having these specifications for posting residual item from payment differences. Okay, so this is the important thing. Let me tell you here, okay, in the Excel sheet. So there is a, let me explain you, posting residual versus partial payment. Okay, so what happens is, while you, let's suppose you are having a vendor invoice, no, sorry, the customer invoice. Okay, customer invoice of 1,000. Okay, and let's suppose you receive the payment of 950. Okay, so here you can calculate the simply difference. Okay, so the difference is 50. So there are two important keywords you should remember for manually clearing the offsetting line item. So you are having the original invoice, okay, you have the payment line item, so the difference is of 50. So For customer clearance, there is a T code manually clearing the line item F-32. For vendor, I'm also telling, okay, but here we are talking about the customer, it is F.44. Okay, so this is for the customer. Okay, so how this will be working is while you are doing it, you are having option to post the difference under a residual or under as a partial payment. Okay, or you should consider this as a partial payment, or you should make this payment and the rest you contribute to the residual. So how does that work is, for example, your original invoice was of 1000. If you selecting the residual item to be created, so what will happen is the original invoice of the customer, let me mention, so in case of residual, so original invoice gets cleared and new open item created. Okay, so it will be created of how many rupees? 50. Okay, and that would be of rupee 50 because 50 is the difference. And what will happen in case of this partial payment? So what will happen is original original invoice remains open. Okay, so what will happen it will do a partial payment like 950 is posted, but still the, for example, this debited amount 50 is still opened as a part of original invoice. Okay, so no new open item is created under this. Okay, so here we can see under our payment terms we are having the specification for posting residual items from payment difference. So we are talking about the residual. So I explained you these two because these are widely used under projects. So I that is why I explained you the difference between these two, residual as well as partial payment. Okay. So now we are talking about the this specification for posting residual items from payment differences. Okay, so I gave you that example of let's suppose 1000 and you received a payment of 950 and you go with the creation of the residual item. Okay, so here for example payment term from invoice, payment term means like net due date as well as mm, the discount, all those comes from the payment term. I already showed you under that particular screen payments here. So if you see default for baseline date, okay. So for example, you can make baseline date as document date, posting date, and entry date. On basis of this, okay, you can create a net due date. Let's suppose if we remove this everything, okay, and give fixed days as 30, and here if we give document date, so when the document date is given on your any of the like document, so from that date up 30 your net due date will be given. Okay, so it means within 13 days from the document date any customer is expected to pay us, or if we are like created vendor invoice, we are expected to pay to the vendor within 30 days. Okay, so this is how this payment term work. Okay, four character alphanumeric key would be giving, and that would be assigned to vendor as well as the customers. Okay, so here we can see the payment term from invoice. So if you check this option, so what will happen is your original invoice was created for 1000. Okay, and that would be having one payment term. So if we check this and the residual payment, residual line item is created for 50, so the same payment term would be applicable to that particular like remaining amount. Okay, like 50. And if you don't like check this, so if you are giving the residual item, you would be giving that any payment term manually there. Okay, so you have to keep this difference in your mind. Okay, and next we are having this uh, only grant partial cash discount. Okay, so this is a very another important point. If you check this, let me mention, if you check this, like I just write it. Only grant partial cash discount. Okay, if checked. So what will happen is, as I already told you, let's suppose there is a customer invoice of, let's suppose, 1000, and you are giving discount of, let's suppose, 10%. We are giving 10% discount. So it means up to 900, our customer can make payment and this would be cleared. Okay. Now the payment we received is of, let's suppose, 800. Okay. So what will happen is, if you check this particular box, only grant partial cash discount. So what will happen is, it will, like, for example, uh, so what amount we got, for example, if you see the invoices of like 1000 and we received a payment of 800. So it means 80% of the amount we have got. Okay. So only 80% of the discount would be applicable. So if you calculate the discount on the 1000, it would be 100. The 10% would be the 100. So 80% we would be giving. Okay. So what will happen is, we are going to clear off, let's suppose the 80% of 100 would be 80. We receive there's 800. Okay, so 80 we have given as a discount. If you calculate this, it will be discount. So 880 with discount, we are giving 80% discount, and 800 as a payment we received. So what is left from like 1000? I can write it directly also, but I'm showing you, just showing the calculation. Okay. So 120 is still left. So what will happen is, we will create a residual line item of amount 120. Okay. So it means 120 are still uh, payable from the customer side. Okay. I hope this is clear. And if you like do the, keep it unchecked. Let me copy and mention. If it is unchecked, so what will happen is, again, we are going to take same example. Same example. We have the customer invoice of 1000, discount applicable is 10%, which is 100, and we receive the payment of 800. Okay, so it means the whole discount would be applicable on his first payment. Okay, so the discount is 800, and we are giving the payment is of 800. We would be giving the whole discount. This is 100. Okay, so what payment we received is 900, because we are giving 100 as a discount, 800 as a payment. Now the remaining amount would be 1000 minus 900 would be 100. Okay, so 100 would be a residual line item. Okay, so this is how this functionality work. If you keep it unchecked, so full discount would be given here now. And if you keep this particular like point as a checked, so only partial discount would be applicable on your original invoice. Okay. Now, other than that, we are having the fixed payment term. Okay. So let's suppose your original invoice gets cleared. Okay, and you are creating one new line item, which is known as the residual line item. Okay, which would be open. So you can copy the payment terms directly from your original invoice, and you also having the option to, like, if you don't give here any fixed payment term, you can just like give any manual payment terms, whatever you want. Okay, so it's up to you only. So here, if you give any payment term, okay, so it means it will be fixed on your residual line item. Okay, it has nothing to do with the original invoice. Okay, so if you keep it blank, then simply you have to like check this payment term from invoice. So it means it will automatically be taking payment term from your original invoice. Okay, on the residual line item. If you want to fix any other, uh, if you want to fix any other payment term, you can just give here. Okay. and then finally it would be like fixed on your residual line item. It would be applicable on your residual line item. Okay. And next is the Dunning key. Dunning key actually tells you about the, for example, you can set up for customer. Okay. So in case of residual item, you can keep, for example, I think Dunning you would be knowing. Dunning is a reminder to our customer. Okay. In case of like delay in the payment. So there are level, okay, Dunning, there are level of Dunning. Okay, so let me mention some commonly used. Dunning is a reminder to customer, okay, for the payment. Okay, so there are like level one, two, three. I'm mentioning. Okay, so here you can define like if one level one is considered as a kind reminder, and then we are having the like firm notice, and there is a legal notice. Okay. So this is how you can also set up for your line item. Okay. So in case your residual line item are not being paid, okay, within certain deadline, whatever you have given is for the payment item, you can start sending the reminder. Here you can configure. Okay. If you think your customer is well and good, so you give it as a one. So kind reminders are sent to that. If you think the record of your customer is not good, then we can give here as three also. Okay. So it's up to us only. So now moving next, we are having this tolerance for payment advices. Okay, so payment advices. Under the payment advices, you might be knowing while we are doing the like automatic payment. So we consider the generation of this payment advice, okay, or the remittances. We also call the remittance. Okay, so while we are doing the payment to the vendor, we create the remittance, and that remittance is sent to the uh, respective vendor, and that remittance is uploaded in their system, and then automatically the invoice which is opened gets cleared. Okay. Similarly, let's suppose there is a customer. Okay. He sold something for us, like to them, we are the vendor. Okay. Let's suppose they made the payment and we receive the remittances. Okay. So the remittance, whatever the invoice, for example, let me mention the cost invoice was of, let's suppose, 1000. Okay. And then we received the payment. So I'm mentioning the uh, two scenario. Okay, the one and two scenario I'm giving. Another payment is, so let's suppose we received a payment of 950, and we received a payment of 100 1020. Okay, so what will happen is, for example, if you receive from the customer 1000 was payable and we received 950. Okay, so it means if you have given, for example, okay, so for example, here we can see, here we have given as a like we have received a payment in one scenario 950, and another scenario we are receiving a payment of 1020. Okay, so let's suppose we are mentioning here like outstanding receivable from amount. Here we are giving as a 20. Okay, and here we are giving as a 2%. Okay, and again we are giving as a 20, and then again as a 2%. So this is also applicable for the like residual. Okay, so if we see, for example, we have received a payment of 950. Okay, so it means the difference is of 50. Okay, and if we consider that 2% of 1000 is 20. Okay, so it means that we are like giving a discount up to of 2% or the 20. Okay, so the lowest is 2. Here we are having equal. Okay, the amount as well as the percentage both are equal. The 20 would be like 2% of 1000. Okay, so in that case what will happen is we have already received 950. Okay, so the 2% is already given as a discount, so it means we are giving a discount of 20. Okay, so 20 and there's 950 becomes your 970. Okay, now what will happen is, so the invoice, a residual invoice which would be created, because if you like check the difference between these two, it would be of 30 rupees, okay, not of 50, because up to 20 as per this outstanding receivable from the tolerance advices, 970 it was acceptable, but over and above 30 we create a residual line item. Okay, but let's suppose in 1020 we are having the alignment with the customer. Okay, in case mistakenly you are like sending the overpayment, because this is the case of underpayment. Okay, if you are like sending the overpayment, so up to 2% or the amount 20, it won't be creating any like credit. Okay, credit memo, or it won't be like creating any liability. So if you see 120, 1020 is there, if you see the 2% of 1000 is, it's actually 20. Okay, so if you add these, okay, we received the amount like 1000 was payable, 20 is our like tolerance we have maintained. Okay, so 1020 is acceptable, it won't be creating any of the residual line item. And in case, for example, we receive 30, okay, so what will happen is 1030 we got and 20 was the limit, so 20 would be adjusted uh, as a like overpayment, and the above amount of like 10 more than this 1020 would be created in case of, let's suppose, 1000, uh, let's suppose we received a payment of 1030 and 20 is acceptable. Okay, so for example this 20 is acceptable, so what less is, for example, if you see 1020 acceptable and 1030 we received, so there would be a line item which would be payable actually to your customer, the credit memo or the credit entry would be generated of this 10 amount. Okay, so I hope it would be clear to you. Okay, so this was the whole end-to-end explanation of all the tolerances, GL, your employee tolerance, as well as the customer and vendor. Okay, so let me show you one more thing also. Um, like, where do we do the? Let me firstly save this. Okay, it should be in this format. Okay. So we have saved it. Now where this particular blank tolerance is assigned, okay, against a customer and vendor. So in our theoretical session, we have already seen how do we assign it. So let me just quickly show you. So there is a code in our like legacy system, ECC. X, okay, let's suppose we are talking about vendor. So this is the T code to display the vendor master data. Now this has been replaced by BP, but these T code are still like there in the system. It has not been eliminated. If you click enter, so the screen will open up. Now we are going to give the vendor. Let me just quickly give the vendor. Okay, this is the vendor. We are giving company code this. And apart from this, I told you in our theoretical session, under company code, we have to come to the payment transaction of vendor or the customer. If you click here and click on enter, so this screen will open up. Okay, so this is the BP business partner, and then we are having the company code as well as the supplier. Under company code segment, we are having three segments: general data, the company code data, as well as the purchasing organization data. So under company code segment, you have to come to the vendor payment transaction. Here you can see under the payment data tolerance group. Here actually the tolerance group which you have created would be assigned. Okay, so it might be blank also, it might be like any four character alphanumeric, whatever you define in your tolerance. So this is how it actually gets assigned. So same is applicable for the customer also. So I just showed you one of those. Okay, so that's all on these tolerances group, and we will be meeting in our next video. Thank you.